All right, as I mentioned earlier today, the Biden administration released proposed rule changes to Title IX that torches long-standing protections and equal opportunities granted to women. Now, this was done to continue the administration's obsession. Obsession. It's the only way I can describe it, with radical transgender ideology.
Strengthening Title IX and promoting gender equality is a top priority for my administration. Every person, I mean every person, deserves a chance to realize their full potential.
That was President Biden again on the 50th anniversary of Title IX, and he is true. He is speaking truth on this occasion. It is a top priority for his administration. Now, not only will these rule changes deny women a fair playing field in sports and open the door for all kinds of abuses in showers, bathrooms, in dorm rooms, they will also thwart freedom of speech in classrooms and on campuses across America. Now, the document outlining these proposed changes runs several hundred pages and was just released this morning. So there's still a lot to digest, but I wanted to get a quick rundown to you as soon as possible. So joining me now to help analyze and explain what this means for you, for your children, your grandchildren, is Meg Kilgannon, Senior Fellow for Education Studies here at the Family Research Council and a former member of the Trump Department of Education. Meg, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
All right, I know you have been tracking this announcement, waiting for the official rule to come out. It is now out. What do we know?
It is now out. This is the document. It's a huge, huge rewrite of Title IX. And a lot of this document is about sexual harassment procedures and Title IX as essentially a court function on college campuses. But what I think our listeners are really going to be most interested in are the redefinition of three terms: sex to mean gender identity. They redefine pregnancy and pregnancy-related conditions to include abortion and abortion services as part of the definition of pregnancy. And they redefine parent to include in loco parentis, or the school, as part of the definition of parent. So this is essentially the queering of Title IX. This shows you that you have people who are Gnostic fundamentalists, essentially, writing the rules at the Department of Education now in this administration. They are committed to redefining everything about everything, smashing the binary, as the queer theorists like to say.
I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to go back to the last point that you brought up. And I want to make sure I heard you correctly, that this now changes the definition of parent to include the school?
Yes. There are traditionally 4 or 5 categories of parent, step-parent, foster parent, guardian, that of course we can all understand that in an imperfect world we need to define these things. But they go on to add 2 additional options for defining parent, to be in loco parentis, which is the school, and then anybody applying for custody of a child can be held to be that child's parent. So this is an expansion. What they love to say is that we're being inclusive, and this is going to ensure equity for everyone. But what it does is make the definitions that they're using meaningless, essentially,
right,
by changing them entirely.
So I have not read through this yet. So I'm honestly asking questions here that I don't know the answers to, which is sometimes dangerous, especially on live programming. But so this would, to me, would be like suggesting and moving toward the government becoming the parent of the child, that way squeezing out the parents so that they can make determinations, or the child can come to them and say, I want to do this, and they can say, we got you covered.
Yes, and when they define sex to include sexual orientation and gender identity, meaning that sex is no longer a binary male or female definition, but it is including any internal sense of your feeling of yourself and whatever gender that might be, then this definition of parent being expanded to include the school takes on a whole new and very dangerous application. Because when if a child were to go to a school and say, I'm a boy trapped in a girl's body, and I would like to have a medical treatment to achieve my dream of being a boy because I know that that's my internal sense of gender, that means possibly that the school could act in the place of the parent, because they're now defined as the parent, to make these kind of treatments available to children.
Especially if the child tells the school officials or the counselor that my parents are hostile toward me, they do not accept me as I am, and I cannot tell them.
Right.
And that would be all the cover that the school would need. So, Meg, these Title IX provisions, who do they apply to? What institutions?
Title IX originally applied to educational institutions, but Title IX has applications across federal agencies. That civil rights law is designed originally, the intention is to honor the dignity of the human person, and as human beings, we fail always to protect people from discrimination based on age, based on race, based on sex. And so the Title IX canon of law is designed to protect people from discrimination. And so it can apply broadly across the agencies. What this demonstrates is a fundamental misunderstanding of the dignity of the human person that's held by this administration.
So what type of educational institutions will be bound by these rules?
Educational institutions that accept federal money will have to be bound by these rules. They are still maintaining a religious exemption for educational institutions that are controlled by religious organizations, but that is under attack in the courts by radical groups that want to say that if you take federal student loans, you're getting federal money, and so you're not exempt from Title IX, even if you're not, you're privately funded.
So will the states have any recourse when it comes to elementary and secondary education? Will they be impacted by this?
Yes, this will apply to K-12 schools as well. This isn't just about colleges, especially the schools, Tony, that receive a large portion of their budget from the federal government. The county where I live is a wealthy county, and the federal imprint, we could not take federal money and it really wouldn't make that big of a difference to our budget. But in very poor areas and Title I schools, they rely substantially on federal funding, and so this can really be used to bully those schools into submission.
And as we've seen in the past, with very few exceptions, the only exception I can think of is the Trump administration that would undo these bad policies. Most of the time, the Republicans, we saw this in the Bush administration, they just simply push the pause button, but they never undo the bad provisions. So they know if they get this in, that this will be there, most likely to stay. So with that in mind, Meg, what can be done to stop this? What can people do now?
Well, there is a comment period. This is it's a notice of public rulemaking. So this is a proposal, and there will be a comment period that ends September 12th. So in the coming days, we will have a portal available for our listeners and supporters to send their comments to the department. To let them know that we want to preserve the rights of women to their private spaces. We want to preserve women's sports. We want to preserve parental rights. And we don't want to define pregnancy as abortion. So we'll be back with information on how to do that very soon.
Well, and we will, as we're able to digest this, we'll do more, and we'll have another program on this. But just to your point, Meg, polling indicates that most Americans disapprove of this radical agenda. I mean, why is the Biden administration so obsessed with pushing forward with this?
Well, I think some of the people in the administration truly believe that they are just including everyone, that they are being equitable. But we know there's a big difference between equitable and equal, and that being equal under the law isn't the same thing as decreeing from on high that everybody has to be the same, right? And so this is their effort to include everyone, and it's going to end up not including actual men and actual women.
Right. And it's going to deprive women of opportunities, and it's going to stifle freedom of speech
Yes.
and religious exercise across the country. Meg Kilgannon, always great to talk with you. And as I said, we will be talking more about this in the days ahead as we're able to digest these hundreds and hundreds of pages of proposed rules. Always good to see you, Meg.
Thanks for having me.
Folks.